Have you ever woken up from a dream so real, so vivid, so emotionally overwhelming, that for a few seconds you genuinely didn't know which world was real? Not the foggy, half-remembered kind of dream. The kind that grabs you. The kind where you felt things. Fear, love, grief, joy, with an intensity that your waking life rarely matches. The kind that stayed with you all day or all week or for years. Now here's the question that science hasn't been able to answer. Where did that come from? Every single night of your life, without exception, your brain constructs an entire world from nothing. It invents people you've never met, creates places that don't exist. It generates emotions so real that your body responds. Your heart races, your eyes fill with tears, your muscles tense. And then, within minutes of waking, it erases almost all of it. We spend roughly 6 years of our lives inside these constructed realities. 6 years in worlds our own minds built. And we understand almost none of it. Why do we dream? What is the brain actually doing during those hours of vivid, bizarre, emotionally charged experience? Why do some people dream about events before they happen? Why do strangers across completely different cultures keep dreaming the same things? What is sleep paralysis? And why has every civilization in history described the same terrifying presence in the room? In this video, we go through all of it. The neuroscience, the psychology, the cases that science can't explain, and the theories that will make you question what reality actually is. By the end of this video, you'll never fall asleep quite the same way again. Here's something that should humble us. Despite centuries of curiosity, decades of modern neuroscience, and billions of dollars of research into the brain, we still don't have a complete scientific explanation for why we dream. We know a great deal about what happens in the brain during dreaming. We know almost nothing about why. That gap between the how and the why is one of the most fascinating unsolved problems in all of science. What we do know is this: dreaming is not a malfunction. It's not random noise. It's not your brain idling while you sleep. It is an active, organized, metabolically expensive process that evolution has preserved across millions of years and across virtually every species that has a brain complex enough to support it. Dogs dream, rats dream, birds dream. Even some fish show signs of something dreamlike during sleep. Whatever dreaming is, it is ancient and it is important enough that evolution kept it generation after generation, despite the fact that it requires a sleeping body that is vulnerable to predators and unable to eat or reproduce. Something about dreaming is worth that cost. We just haven't fully figured out what. The theories range from the mundane to the profound. Dreams as memory consolidation, the brain replaying and organizing the experiences of the day. Dreams as threat rehearsal, a safe simulation of dangerous situations so that the waking mind is better prepared. Dreams as emotional processing, a nightly therapy session in which the brain works through difficult feelings without the rational prefrontal cortex getting in the way. Dreams as random noise that the narrative-hungry human mind attempts to organize into stories. Each of these theories has evidence behind it. None of them fully accounts for everything we observe. And none of them touches the strangest and most personal aspects of dreaming. The premonitions, the visitations, the dreams that seem to come from somewhere beyond the ordinary workings of a sleeping brain. To understand any of that, we first need to understand what the brain is actually doing while you sleep. When you fall asleep, your brain doesn't shut down. It shifts. It enters a series of states, sleep stages, that cycle through the night in roughly 90-minute intervals, each with its own distinct pattern of activity and its own relationship to dreaming. The stage most associated with vivid dreaming is called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, named for the distinctive back-and-forth movement of your eyes behind closed lids that characterizes it. During REM sleep, your brain activity looks, on an EEG scan, remarkably similar to waking consciousness. The visual cortex is active. The emotional centers, particularly the amygdala, which processes fear and other strong emotions, are highly activated. The prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thought, planning, and reality checking, is significantly suppressed. That last point is crucial. In dreams, the part of your brain responsible for asking, "Wait, does this make sense?" is largely offline, which is why you can dream about flying to your childhood home on a bicycle made of cheese and find it completely plausible while it's happening. The reality monitor is asleep, even when you aren't. Meanwhile, your body is paralyzed. During REM sleep, the brainstem sends signals that inhibit the motor neurons, the cells that would normally allow you to move. This is called REM atonia, and it exists, most scientists believe, to prevent you from acting out your dreams. Your brain is generating movement signals, the neural commands to run, fight, grab, gesture, but your body can't respond. You are immobilized inside an experience of movement. The chemistry is equally dramatic. During REM sleep, the brain's levels of serotonin, norepinephrine, and histamine, neurotransmitters associated with waking consciousness and logical thinking, drop dramatically. Meanwhile, acetylcholine levels surge. This specific neurochemical cocktail is what generates the vivid, emotionally intense, logically unconstrained quality of dreaming. Interestingly, this same neurochemical profile is similar to what happens in the brain under certain psychedelic substances. The resemblance is not coincidental, and we'll come back to it later. You probably woke up this morning with some vague sense of having dreamed. Maybe a fragment of an image, a lingering emotion, the ghost of a scene. But the full experience, the plot, the people, the places, is gone. And within an hour of waking, even the fragments will likely have faded. This happens to almost everyone, almost every night. And it's not a failure of memory. It's a feature. During REM sleep, the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation center, the structure that converts short-term experiences into long-term memories, operates differently than during waking. The norepinephrine that normally helps the hippocampus encode memories is suppressed during REM sleep. Without it, the experiences of the dream are processed emotionally and experientially but not stored as explicit memories in the usual way. This might be intentional. One theory suggests that if we remembered every dream with perfect clarity, we would struggle to distinguish dream memories from real memories. Our sense of reality depends, in part, on knowing what actually happened versus what we imagined. A brain that fully recorded dreams might blur that boundary dangerously. There are exceptions. Dreams that occur in the final REM cycle of the night, just before waking, are more likely to be remembered, because the transition from sleep to waking captures some of the dream content before it fades. Dreams accompanied by strong emotion, particularly fear, are also more likely to be remembered, because the emotional systems that are active during dreaming can leave traces that persist into waking. And then there are the dreams that you remember for decades. The ones so vivid, so strange, so emotionally overwhelming that they stay with you for years. Those are the dreams that demand explanation, and that tend to be the ones that feel like more than random noise. Imagine being inside a dream and suddenly realizing, with complete clarity, that you are dreaming. The scene around you doesn't change. The people are still there, the environment is still there, the sensations are still real. But you are aware that this is a dream, and in that awareness, something extraordinary opens up. The ability to influence what happens next. This is a lucid dream, and it is one of the most remarkable and well-documented phenomena in all of sleep science. Lucid dreaming was confirmed scientifically in 1975 by psychologist Keith Hearn, and independently replicated by Stephen LaBerge at Stanford in the 1980s. The confirmation came through a clever solution to an obvious problem. How do you prove someone is conscious and aware while they're asleep? LaBerge trained lucid dreamers to signal the moment they became lucid by moving their eyes in a specific pre-agreed pattern, left, right, which was detectable on the REM sleep EEG. The signals appeared. Lucid dreaming was real. What happens in the brain during a lucid dream is fascinating. The prefrontal cortex, the rational, self-aware part of the brain that is suppressed during ordinary dreaming, reactivates. Not fully, not to waking levels, but enough to generate self-awareness, the recognition of the dream state, and a degree of intentional control. It is, in a sense, a hybrid state of consciousness. The vivid, immersive reality of dreaming combined with the self-awareness of waking. People who can reliably achieve lucid dreams describe experiences of extraordinary vividness. Flying, exploring, creating, meeting deceased loved ones, facing fears in a safe environment. Some report using lucid dreams deliberately for creative problem-solving, entering the dream with a specific question and exploring the dreamscape for answers. And the dreamscape responds. The lucid dreamer can, to a significant degree, shape the environment, the narrative, the outcomes. Not perfectly, the dream has its own momentum, its own logic, its own surprises. But the degree of intentional influence available in a lucid dream is unlike anything possible in waking life. Almost everyone has them. You're back in school, unprepared for an exam you forgot about. You're running from something and your legs won't move. You're in a house with rooms you've never seen before. You're falling. You're flying. The specific scenarios vary, but the experience of dreaming the same dream, or the same type of dream, again and again is almost universal. Recurring dreams are one of the most studied phenomena in sleep research, and what they reveal about the dreaming mind is striking. They are not random. They cluster around specific themes: threat, failure, loss, conflict, and they tend to appear during periods of stress, anxiety, or unresolved psychological tension. The leading theory is that recurring dreams are the brain's attempt to process something it hasn't fully resolved. An emotional situation, a fear, a trauma, a conflict, something that the waking mind has been unable to integrate. The dream returns to the same territory again and again, trying different angles, different approaches, looking for a way through. Sometimes it finds one. Research shows that recurring dreams often stop when the underlying issue is resolved, either through therapy, through life changes, or simply through the passage of time and the natural processing that sleep provides. The dream served its purpose and no longer needs to recur. Sometimes it doesn't, and the dream continues, night after night, year after year. A persistent signal from the depths of the unconscious that something remains unfinished, which raises a question worth sitting with. If you have a dream that keeps coming back, what is it trying to tell you? A nightmare is not just an unpleasant dream. It is a specific phenomenon, a dream of sufficient intensity and emotional impact to wake you from sleep, leaving you in a state of fear, distress, or disorientation. And it is far more common than most people admit. Roughly half of all adults experience occasional nightmares. Between 2 and 8% experience frequent, severe nightmares that significantly affect their sleep and waking life. Children have them even more commonly, a reflection, researchers believe, of the developing brain's attempt to process a rapidly expanding and sometimes frightening world. What triggers nightmares? The list is long: stress, anxiety, trauma, certain medications, alcohol, fever, and most powerfully, post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD nightmares are in a category of their own. They are often direct replays of traumatic events, experienced again and again with the same intensity as the original experience. The brain is not processing the trauma, it is reliving it, stuck in a loop that it cannot escape through ordinary sleep mechanisms. But here's what's interesting about nightmares in the broader population. Outside of PTSD, they are not entirely bad. Research suggests that nightmares serve a function. They are threat simulations, the brain rehearsing frightening scenarios in a safe context, building the neural responses that would be needed if those scenarios occurred in waking life. A person who has dreamed of being chased and survived, of falling and caught themselves, of social humiliation and recovered, that person's nervous system is, in some sense, better prepared for real threats than one who has never faced those scenarios, even in the safety of sleep. The nightmare is the immune system of the psyche, unpleasant, necessary, and revealing in ways we're only beginning to understand about what the sleeping mind considers most dangerous. Now we enter the territory that science is most uncomfortable with, and that people find most fascinating. The premonitory dream, the dream that seems to show something before it happens. Almost everyone knows someone who has had one. A dream about a car accident the night before a car accident. A dream about a phone call that came the next morning. A dream about a death that happened days later. These experiences are reported across every culture, every historical era, every social class. They are not the province of the credulous or the mystical. They are reported by engineers, doctors, skeptics, and scientists. The plural of anecdote is not data. But when the anecdotes accumulate in the hundreds of thousands, and when some of them include specific, verifiable details that cannot be explained by coincidence, the scientific obligation is to take them seriously, even if reluctantly. Some of the most documented cases are historical. In 1865, Abraham Lincoln reportedly dreamed of his own assassination days before it happened, describing to his wife and friends a dream in which he wandered through the White House and found a covered body, and was told by a guard that the president had been killed. Whether the account is accurate is debated, but it was documented by multiple witnesses who heard it before the assassination. Mark Twain reportedly dreamed in detail of his brother Henry's death. The specific scenario, the specific coffin, the specific flowers, weeks before Henry died in a steamboat explosion. Twain described the dream to his sister before the death occurred. More recently, in the days before the Titanic sank in 1912, multiple passengers reported having unsettling dreams about the voyage and chose not to board. The number of last-minute cancellations on the Titanic was statistically anomalous, higher than comparable voyages. Whether dreams played a role cannot be proven, but the pattern has been noted by researchers. The mainstream scientific response to premonitory dreams is to invoke a cluster of well-understood cognitive mechanisms, and they are genuinely powerful explanations that account for many cases. Confirmation bias is the first and most important. We have thousands of dreams. We remember a tiny fraction. Of the fraction we remember longest the ones that seem to correspond to subsequent events. We forget the vast majority of dreams that correspond to nothing. The result is a strong subjective impression that our dreams predict the future, when in reality we are selectively remembering the hits and forgetting the misses. Pattern recognition is the second. The human brain is an extraordinarily powerful pattern detection machine, so powerful that it regularly detects patterns that aren't there. A dream about a car accident followed by a car accident feels like prediction. But we drive cars every day. Accidents are a constant low-level fear, and dreaming about accidents is extremely common. The correspondence, in most cases, is exactly what you'd expect from chance. Cryptomnesia is the third. Sometimes we process information subconsciously. We absorb details about a situation without being consciously aware of it. The unconscious mind assembles those details into a coherent picture and presents it in a dream. When the predicted event occurs, it feels like precognition. But it was actually unconscious inference, the brain connecting dots that the conscious mind hadn't noticed. These mechanisms are real. They explain a lot, but they don't explain everything. They don't account for the cases where the dream includes specific, idiosyncratic details that could not have been inferred from available information. The specific coffin, the specific flowers, the specific words spoken by a specific person in a scenario that hadn't yet occurred. A complete scientific account of premonitory dreams doesn't exist. The mainstream explanations are partial. And partial explanations, as we've noted before, are not complete ones. Lincoln's dream is famous but not unique. The history of premonitory dreams is populated by figures whose accounts were documented before the events they apparently predicted. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who developed analytical psychology and spent his career studying the unconscious mind, documented numerous cases of dreams that appeared to anticipate future events, both in his patients and in himself. Jung did not dismiss these as coincidence. He developed the concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, to describe events that are connected not by cause and effect but by meaning. Dreams, in Jung's framework, could tap into something beyond the individual unconscious, what he called the collective unconscious, a shared layer of human psyche that might have access to information unavailable to ordinary waking consciousness. Jung himself reportedly dreamed, in 1913, of a wave of blood flooding Europe, a dream he had repeatedly and that he initially feared represented his own psychological breakdown. When World War I began in 1914, he understood the dream differently. Whether this was prediction, intuition based on the political tensions of the time, or coincidence, Jung could not say with certainty. But he took it seriously enough to document it and build a theory around it. The American psychologist Henry Reed conducted experiments in the 1970s and 1980s asking people to dream about specific target events, photographs, situations, that would be revealed the following day. Some results were statistically significant enough to be published in peer-reviewed journals, though the experiments have been difficult to replicate consistently. The honest scientific position is, we don't know. The evidence for premonitory dreaming is not strong enough to establish it as a confirmed phenomenon. But it is not absent either, and the experience is common enough, and the documented cases compelling enough, that dismissing it entirely requires an act of willful ignorance that serious scientists should be reluctant to perform. To understand the full picture of dreaming, we need to understand that sleep is not a single state. It is a carefully choreographed sequence of states, each serving different functions, each with a different relationship to the dream experience. A full night of sleep consists of roughly 4 to 6 cycles, each lasting about 90 minutes. Each cycle contains both non-REM and REM sleep in a proportion that shifts through the night. Early cycles are dominated by deep, slow-wave non-REM sleep, while later cycles contain progressively more REM. Non-REM sleep has 3 stages. Stage 1 is the lightest, the transition from waking to sleep, where you might experience hypnagogic hallucinations, brief, vivid images or sounds that appear as you drift off. Stage 2 is a deeper, more stable sleep characterized by sleep spindles, brief bursts of neural activity that are thought to be involved in memory consolidation. Stage 3, slow-wave sleep, is the deepest, the hardest to wake from, the most physically restorative, the stage where growth hormone is released and the body repairs itself. Dreams can occur in any stage of sleep, but the most vivid, narrative, emotionally intense dreams happen during REM. And because REM periods get longer as the night progresses, the final REM cycle of the night can last an hour. The most elaborate dreams happen in the early morning hours, just before you wake. This is why the alarm clock is so cruel. It cuts off your longest, most vivid REM period, the one most likely to contain the dreams you'd most want to remember and explore. And it's why sleeping in on weekends sometimes produces unusually vivid, memorable dreams. The extra sleep allows the final, extended REM cycles to run their course. Here's something worth really sitting with. Every person you have ever seen in a dream is a face your brain generated. Not a face from your memory, or not only that. The dreaming brain takes fragments of faces seen throughout life and assembles them into new faces, new people, new characters with their own voices, personalities, and behaviors. Your brain is a content generation engine of extraordinary power. During REM sleep, with the logical prefrontal cortex suppressed and the visual, emotional, and associative systems running at full power, it constructs entire worlds from raw material. Faces assembled from fragments. Voices generated from patterns. Places built from architectural memories and spatial associations. Narratives that emerge from emotional states and unresolved psychological tensions. The resulting experience is so compelling, so internally consistent, so emotionally real that the sleeping brain accepts it without question. You don't think, "This is strange," when you're dreaming. You think, "This is happening." The dream world is your reality for as long as you're in it. What this tells us about the brain is profound. The waking world feels real and the dream world feels real for the same reason. Because the brain is constructing both. Perception, even in waking life, is not a passive recording of external reality. It is an active construction, built from sensory input combined with expectation, memory, and inference. The dream simply removes the sensory input and lets the construction process run on its own. Waking and dreaming are not as different as they feel. Both are your brain's best guess about what's happening. The difference is that in waking, the guess is constrained by actual sensory data. In dreaming, the constraint is lifted, and the brain shows you what it can do when it's working entirely from the inside. One of the most compelling modern theories of dreaming comes from neuroscientist Antti Rauvansio, who proposed what he called the threat simulation theory. But it has since been expanded by others into something broader and more interesting. The idea that dreaming is a full-scale simulation of reality, run by the brain for purposes of preparation, rehearsal, and optimization. In this view, the dreaming brain is not producing meaningless noise or randomly processing memories. It is running simulations, testing scenarios, rehearsing responses, modeling social situations, physical challenges, emotional conflicts, and building the neural circuitry to handle them better in waking life. The evidence for this is striking. People who are learning new skills often dream about them. Musicians dream about practicing. Athletes dream about their sport, and research shows that this dream practice has measurable effects on waking performance. People navigating difficult social situations dream about those situations, trying different approaches, different responses, different outcomes. The dreaming brain is a flight simulator. It puts you in the scenario, the confrontation, the performance, the crisis, and lets you practice, fail, recover, and try again without any real-world consequences. When the actual situation arrives, you are, in a very specific neurological sense, more prepared than you would have been without the dream rehearsal. This theory also explains why dreams are so emotionally intense. The simulation needs to generate the actual emotional responses, the fear, the excitement, the grief, the joy that the real situation would produce. Otherwise, the rehearsal wouldn't work. The nervous system needs to actually experience the emotion, not just represent it abstractly, for the rehearsal to have transfer value to waking life. Your nightmares are training sessions. Your anxiety dreams are stress tests. Your flying dreams might be your brain exploring the exhilarating space of possibility that waking physical constraints don't allow. The simulation is always running, always preparing you for what exactly you won't know until it happens. The idea that dreams carry meaning, that they are not random noise but signals from some deeper part of the mind, is ancient. But it was two men in the early 20th century who turned that intuition into systematic theory, and whose ideas still shape how we think about dreams today. Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams in 1900, and it remains one of the most influential books ever written about the human mind. His central claim: dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. During sleep, the ego, the rational, socially conditioned self, relaxes its guard, and the unconscious mind, ordinarily suppressed, expresses itself in symbolic, disguised form. For Freud, dreams were primarily wish fulfillments, expressions of desires, particularly sexual and aggressive desires, that the conscious mind would not allow. The bizarre, illogical quality of dreams was not accidental. It was the work of what Freud called the dream censor, disguising the true content of the dream so that it wouldn't disturb the sleeper. Carl Jung agreed with Freud that dreams were meaningful, but disagreed about what they meant. For Jung, dreams were not primarily about wish fulfillment or disguised desire. They were communications from the unconscious to the conscious mind, attempts at integration, at wholeness, at what Jung called individuation. The unconscious, in Jung's view, was not a reservoir of repressed drives but a creative, intelligent force with its own perspective on the dreamer's life. Jung also went further than Freud in one crucial direction. He proposed the collective unconscious, a layer of the psyche shared by all humans, containing what he called archetypes. Universal patterns and symbols that appear across cultures and across dreams. The hero, the shadow, the anima, the wise old man, these figures appear in mythology, in religion, and in dreams because they are built into the structure of the human psyche itself. Modern neuroscience has complicated both Freud and Jung. The specific mechanisms they proposed, the dream censor, the collective unconscious, don't map cleanly onto what we've learned about brain function. But the core insight of both, that dreams are meaningful, that they reflect something real about the dreamer's inner life, has held up surprisingly well. Here's something that cuts across all cultural boundaries, all historical periods, all individual differences. Certain dreams appear everywhere. Falling, flying, being chased, showing up naked in public, teeth falling out, being unprepared for an exam, arriving late, finding rooms in a house you didn't know existed. These are not learned symbols. They are not things that people dream about because they were told to expect them. They appear in cultures with no contact with each other, in people with no exposure to dream interpretation literature, in children too young to have absorbed cultural expectations. They are universal in a way that demands explanation. The evolutionary explanation is compelling. These universal dreams reflect universal human experiences and universal human fears. Falling is universally dangerous. Being exposed and vulnerable is universally threatening. Being unprepared for a challenge is universally anxiety-producing. The dreaming brain, across all cultures, gravitates toward the same basic threat scenarios because those scenarios reflect challenges that are universal to human existence. Jung's explanation goes further. These universal symbols are expressions of the archetypes, the built-in patterns of the collective unconscious that all humans share. The house in dreams, Jung proposed, often represents the self, its rooms, levels, and hidden spaces corresponding to different aspects of the psyche. The shadow figure chasing you is often a part of yourself that you haven't acknowledged. The wise old figure who offers guidance represents the self's deeper wisdom trying to communicate with consciousness. Whether you find the evolutionary or the Jungian explanation more convincing, the phenomenon itself is real. The dreaming mind, across all of humanity, keeps returning to the same images, the same scenarios, the same symbols. Whatever dreams are, they are not random. They are drawing from a shared reservoir of human experience, fear, and meaning. Let's make this personal for a moment. If you have a recurring dream, a dream that comes back again and again, month after month, year after year, the research suggests it is not meaningless. It is persistent precisely because something about it matters. The dreaming brain is not inefficient. It does not keep replaying a scenario for no reason. It keeps replaying it because the scenario represents something unresolved. The classic recurring dreams of being chased tend to appear during periods of avoidance, when there is something in waking life that you are running from rather than facing. The recurring dream of being unprepared, the exam, the performance, the presentation, tends to appear during periods of anxiety about competence or adequacy. The recurring dream of a deceased loved one tends to appear when grief has not been fully processed. Jungian therapists treat recurring dreams as direct communications from the unconscious, invitations to engage with something that consciousness has been avoiding. The recommended approach is not to analyze the dream intellectually but to sit with it, to feel it, to ask, what emotion does this leave me with? What in my waking life feels like that? And sometimes the answer is obvious once you let yourself look. The thing you've been avoiding has been waiting in the dream, patient and persistent, appearing night after night until you're ready to face it. Your recurring dream is not haunting you. It's trying to help you. The question is whether you're willing to listen. We touched on lucid dreaming earlier, but it deserves its own deeper exploration, because it is one of the most extraordinary capabilities of the human mind, and one that most people don't know they have access to. The neurological signature of a lucid dream is distinct and measurable. When dreamers become lucid, when they realize they are dreaming, researchers using EEG and fMRI have observed a specific pattern. A reactivation of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region associated with self-awareness, metacognition, and rational thought. This region, suppressed during ordinary dreaming, comes partially back online. Not to waking levels, the dream continues, the immersive quality persists, but enough to generate the crucial insight. This is a dream. That insight changes everything. Because in a lucid dream, the normal dream narrative, which unfolds according to its own logic, independent of the dreamer's conscious will, becomes, to a degree, controllable. The lucid dreamer can fly, can transform the environment, can choose to confront the monster rather than run from it, can seek out specific experiences, specific people, specific scenarios. The applications that researchers have explored are striking. Lucid dreaming has been used therapeutically to treat chronic nightmares, teaching nightmare sufferers to recognize the dream state and change the narrative. Athletes have used it to mentally rehearse performances in vivid, embodied detail. Creative professionals have used it to access imagery and ideas that the waking mind doesn't produce. Some researchers are investigating its potential for processing trauma. And perhaps most intriguingly, people who achieve lucid dreaming report that the experience is unlike anything else in human consciousness. More vivid than waking, more embodied than imagination, a state in which the full sensory richness of experience is available, but the constraints of physical reality are not. The ability to achieve lucid dreams is not uniformly distributed. Some people have them naturally and frequently. Others have never had one. But research suggests that lucid dreaming is a skill, one that can be developed through specific techniques, practiced consistently over time. The most extensively studied technique is called mild mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, developed by Stephen LaBerge. The method involves setting an intention before sleep, telling yourself, repeatedly and with focus, that you will recognize the next dream as a dream. Combined with reality testing during the day, periodically asking yourself, am I dreaming? And genuinely checking, mild significantly increases the frequency of lucid dreams in people who practice it consistently. Reality testing works because the dreaming brain tends to reproduce the habits of the waking brain. If you regularly check reality during the day, you will eventually do so in a dream, and in a dream, reality checks fail in revealing ways. Clocks show nonsensical times. Text changes when you look away and look back. Light switches don't work. Your hands look strange. These failures are the signal that you're dreaming. Another technique is wake back to bed, WBTB. Because REM periods get longer toward morning, waking up after 5 or 6 hours of sleep, staying awake for 20 to 60 minutes with some light activity, and then returning to sleep greatly increases the likelihood of entering REM sleep directly, and of having vivid, memorable, potentially lucid dreams in the extended REM period that follows. The combination of mild and WBTB is currently the most evidence-supported approach for inducing lucid dreams in people who don't have them naturally. It requires patience and consistency. But the payoff, the ability to enter and navigate a self-generated reality of extraordinary vividness, is unlike anything else the human mind can do while still in the body. People who are experienced lucid dreamers describe capabilities that sound impossible to those who haven't experienced them. Flying. Not the clumsy, uncertain flying of ordinary dreams, but genuine, directed, controllable flight. Transforming the environment, changing the landscape, the architecture, the time of day, the weather. Summoning specific people, calling out for someone and having them appear. Exploring, wandering through dream landscapes of extraordinary beauty and complexity that the waking imagination couldn't generate. But experienced lucid dreamers are also honest about the limits. The dream has its own momentum, its own logic, its own resistance. You can influence it, but you can't fully control it, the way you might influence but not fully control a conversation. Sometimes the environment you try to change resists. Sometimes the person you summon isn't who you expected. Sometimes the dream overrides your intention and takes you somewhere else entirely. And there are experiences that veteran lucid dreamers report that go beyond what the "you're just generating this from your brain" explanation fully accounts for. Encounters with figures in lucid dreams who seem to have their own autonomous existence, who say things the dreamer didn't intend, who reveal information the dreamer didn't consciously possess, who behave in ways that feel genuinely surprising rather than self-generated. Whether these experiences represent something real, some form of contact with something beyond the individual mind, or whether they are products of the unconscious presenting itself as other, is a question that science cannot currently answer. But experienced lucid dreamers take them seriously. And what they report consistently is that the deepest levels of the lucid dream feel less like a construction of their own mind and more like an exploration of somewhere that was already there. DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is one of the most powerful psychedelic substances known to science. It is also produced naturally by the human body, and its relationship to the dream state is one of the most intriguing and least understood areas in all of neuroscience. DMT is found in the pineal gland, the small, pinecone-shaped structure in the center of the brain that Descartes famously called the seat of the soul, and that has attracted mystical speculation for centuries. It is also found in the lungs, the retina, and the cerebrospinal fluid. The body makes it. The question is when and how much and what for. The hypothesis, championed by researcher Rick Strassman, who conducted the first government-approved human studies of DMT in the 1990s, is that the brain releases DMT during sleep, during near-death experiences, and at the moment of death. In his studies, subjects who received intravenous DMT reported experiences strikingly similar to those reported in near-death experiences and in the most vivid, bizarre, and seemingly meaningful dreams. Encounters with entities, travel through tunnels and into other realms, experiences of profound meaning and cosmic significance. The neurochemistry supports a connection. The REM state, as we discussed, involves a specific neurochemical profile, high acetylcholine, low serotonin and norepinephrine, that is similar to the state produced by certain psychedelic substances. The visual cortex activation, the emotional intensity, the suppression of rational constraints, all of these features of dreaming are also features of psychedelic experience. Whether the brain actually releases significant amounts of DMT during sleep is still debated. The evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. But the phenomenological overlap between the dream state and the psychedelic state is real and striking. And it raises the possibility that what we call dreaming might be, at a chemical level, a nightly low-dose psychedelic experience that the brain generates for itself. Imagine waking up or thinking you're waking up, unable to move. Your eyes are open or nearly so. The room looks normal, but your body is completely frozen. And you are not alone. There is a presence in the room. You can feel it before you can see it. Heavy, malevolent. It moves toward you. In some cases it sits on your chest, pressing down, making it harder to breathe. In some cases you see it clearly, a dark figure, a shadow, a creature. In all cases, the terror is absolute and real. And then it ends. You can move. The presence is gone. You are alone. But you are sweating, heart pounding, completely certain that what just happened was not a dream. This is sleep paralysis with hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucination, occurring either as you fall asleep or as you wake up. It affects between 8 and 50% of people at some point in their lives, and up to 8% experience it regularly. It is one of the most terrifying experiences the human mind can produce. The physiological explanation is clear. You are partially awake while still in REM atonia, the motor paralysis that normally prevents you from acting out dreams. The hallucinations are dream content bleeding into waking perception. The sense of presence is generated by the threat detection systems of the brain firing in a state where rational context is absent. But here's what makes it interesting. The specific hallucinations, the dark figure, the crushing pressure, the sense of malevolent presence, are extraordinarily consistent across cultures and across centuries. Before sleep paralysis was understood medically, it was described as demonic visitation, as the old hag in English folklore, as the kanashibari in Japanese tradition, as the incubus and succubus of medieval European belief. Every culture that has encountered this experience has interpreted it as something external, something that comes from outside. The universal interpretation of a cross-cultural phenomenon that science explains as internal is one of those things that makes you wonder, what if the external interpretation isn't entirely wrong? We spent an entire video on near-death experiences and what happens after death. But there's a connection between that territory and the dream state that deserves direct attention, because the similarities are not superficial. People who have had near-death experiences consistently describe them as more real than waking life. More vivid, more meaningful, more emotionally overwhelming. The same description is given, with remarkable consistency, by experienced lucid dreamers describing their deepest lucid dream states, and by people who have had profound experiences with DMT. The content overlaps as well. Tunnels light, encounters with deceased loved ones, a panoramic life review, a sense of being outside the body, a boundary that, if crossed, means no return. These elements appear in near-death experiences, in certain types of vivid dreams, and in accounts of DMT experiences. What does this convergence mean? There are two basic interpretations. The first, these experiences are all generated by the same brain mechanisms, the same neurochemical states, the same pattern of neural activation, the same suppression of rational constraints and amplification of emotional and associative processing. Near-death experiences, profound dreams, and psychedelic experiences feel similar because they share a common neurological substrate. The content is brain-generated. The sense of profound reality is an artifact of a specific brain state, not evidence of contact with anything external. The second, the brain, in certain states, deep REM, near-death, altered by specific substances, becomes permeable to something that is normally filtered out by ordinary waking consciousness. The convergence of experiences across these different states is not because they share the same illusion, but because they share the same access point, a thinning of the boundary between ordinary consciousness and something else. Science currently favors the first interpretation, but it has not proven it. And the consistency of the experiences, the emotional conviction of the people who have them, and the verified perceptions that sometimes accompany near-death states make the second interpretation harder to dismiss than the scientific mainstream would prefer. Your dreams are not passive. They are working. Every night, while you sleep, your brain is engaged in a process of emotional regulation, sorting through the experiences of your waking life, processing the feelings that were too intense or too complex to be dealt with during the day, and integrating them into your broader emotional landscape. This is one of the most well-established functions of dreaming, and it has direct, measurable effects on waking well-being. People who are prevented from dreaming through REM sleep deprivation show measurable deterioration in emotional regulation within days. They become more emotionally reactive, less able to handle stress, more vulnerable to anxiety and depression. The dream state is not a luxury. It is essential maintenance. The mechanism involves the specific neurochemistry of REM sleep. During REM, the brain processes emotional memories, but in a neurochemical environment notably low in norepinephrine, the stress neurotransmitter. This means that the brain can re-experience emotional content, can replay difficult memories, can simulate threatening scenarios, without the full stress response that would accompany those experiences in waking life. The emotion is present, but the sharp edge of it is blunted. This is why people often wake from dreams about difficult experiences feeling, paradoxically, better. The dream has processed the emotion without re-traumatizing. It has allowed the mind to sit with the difficult feeling in a slightly safer space. For people with PTSD, this mechanism is broken. The nightmares that characterize PTSD involve stress neurochemistry, the norepinephrine suppression fails, and the dream re-traumatizes rather than processes. Understanding this has led to specific treatments, including a medication called prazosin, which reduces norepinephrine during sleep and dramatically reduces PTSD nightmares in many patients. Your ordinary anxiety dreams, the exam, the presentation, the social catastrophe, are the healthy version of this same process. Your brain is working through your fears. Let it. The relationship between dreaming and creativity is one of the most documented and least appreciated phenomena in the psychology of genius. The list of creative breakthroughs attributed to dreams is extraordinary. Paul McCartney heard the complete melody of Yesterday in a dream and woke up to write it down, initially convinced it must be something he'd heard before because it seemed too complete to have come from nowhere. The chemist August Kekulé discovered the ring structure of benzene after dreaming of a snake biting its own tail, one of the most important discoveries in the history of organic chemistry, arriving in the form of a serpentine dream image. Dmitri Mendeleev saw the periodic table of elements arranged in a dream. Robert Louis Stevenson dreamed the plot of Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein came from a hypnagogic vision as she drifted toward sleep. Salvador Dali cultivated this connection deliberately. He practiced what he called slumber with a key, holding a heavy key over a plate as he dozed in a chair, so that the moment he fell asleep the key would drop, the clatter would wake him, and he could capture the hypnagogic imagery of the threshold between waking and sleep. He credited this practice with some of his most iconic surrealist images. Why is the dreaming mind so creative? Because creativity requires making connections between things that don't obviously belong together. And the dreaming brain, with its associative systems running at full power and its rational constraints suppressed, makes connections that the waking mind would never allow. Combines the unexpected. It juxtaposes the incongruous. It breaks the rules that waking consciousness enforces, and sometimes, in breaking them, it finds something new. The waking mind is a good editor. The dreaming mind is a better creator. The best work, perhaps, comes from letting both do their jobs. We are at the beginning of understanding dreams. Not the end. Not even the middle. The technology available to dream researchers is advancing rapidly. High-resolution fMRI can now capture brain activity during dreaming with enough detail to begin reconstructing, very crudely, what a person is dreaming about. In 2013, Japanese researchers published a study in which they used fMRI data from sleeping subjects to predict, with statistically significant accuracy, the categories of imagery in their dreams, whether they were seeing faces, objects, environments. Crude pattern recognition of dream content, achieved purely from brain scan data. The next step, decades away perhaps but not inconceivable, is something like a dream recorder. A device that could capture the content of your dreams with sufficient fidelity to replay them while awake. The implications are almost too large to contemplate. Everything we currently know about dreams through self-report, imperfect, fragmentary, subject to the biases of memory and language, would be supplemented by direct access to the experience itself. But technology alone won't answer the deepest questions. Because the deepest questions aren't about what the brain is doing during dreaming. They're about what dreaming is, why it feels real, what it means that the mind can generate entire worlds, whether anything about the dream experience reaches beyond the individual brain. These questions require not just better instruments but better theories. A theory of consciousness that can account for the full range of human experience. Waking, dreaming, near-death, psychedelic, meditative. A theory that doesn't assume, in advance, that only the ordinary waking state counts as real. We don't have that theory yet. We may not have it for a long time, but we are slowly building toward it. And every night, in every sleeping mind on Earth, the evidence is being generated. 6 years of experience per lifetime, mostly forgotten, occasionally remembered, occasionally so vivid and so strange and so inexplicably meaningful that it demands to be taken seriously. Tonight, you will dream. Your brain will build a world, populate it with people, generate emotions that feel completely real, and then erase almost all of it before you can hold on to it. Something about that process is important enough that evolution has kept it running for hundreds of millions of years. We still don't fully know what it is, but we're getting closer. And in the meantime, pay attention to your dreams. Write them down. Sit with them. Ask what they're trying to tell you. The most sophisticated simulation in the known universe runs every night inside your skull. It's trying to show you something.